I can hear you.
Yeah, it seems to me that one of the problems in the Middle East and the United States role in that is that we have the status quo, which, as you described, we have the Arab dictatorships on the one hand, and we have the state of Israel in a separate Palestinian region. And one of what I guess I would like for you to respond to is if we don't, like look at any alternatives, say, for instance, a one-state solution in terms of Israel and Palestine and the democratization of the Arab dictatorships, how can there be any real change in the region?
How can there be real change?
Yes, without changing the status quo.
Right. But I think, if I understand you correctly, like, what would the elements of change consist of? Right. I certainly would argue that any change in the Middle East has to, A, rule out any dictates by foreign powers. And it seems to me, here we are in the 21st century, trying to revisit a debate that I thought was settled in a previous century. Look at the debate about Iraq. You hear people in America, liberals and conservatives argue, we cannot leave Iraq because Iraq is not ready yet. These are the colonial arguments, that countries are not ready yet to rule themselves by themselves. That we have to hold them by the hand, to teach them how to walk, and then once they can do that, once they can mimic the colonizer, to use the language of Albert Mimi, we will let them on their own. So that's one requirement. The second requirement is that Middle Easterners should be allowed to determine the course of actions and change that they want for the region. That these do not come from foreign recipes that are done by companies that does contracting work with the Pentagon. This is what we did in Iraq. When the United States invaded Iraq, they took with them a draft of the Iraq Constitution that was prepared. Somebody should do a study about that here in the law school. There was a law firm in Washington, D.C. that did contract work for the Iraqi government, which drafted an Iraqi Constitution, and I cannot confirm if Noah Feldman, your law professor here, was involved or not in that project. And they took it to the Iraqis and they said, here, we have a constitution for you. And this is when Sistani put his foot down and said that he will not allow any constitution that does not come out from Iraqi assembly, and that's when that document was shelved aside. Thirdly, any change in the Middle East cannot come with an insistence on the imposition of Israeli military diktat in the Middle East and the continuation of Israeli wars. The scale of Israeli wars in the Middle East is unknown to a lot of Americans. I am 49 years old. In my own lifetime, Israel has bombed Tunisia, Sudan, Egypt, Palestine, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, and in 1973 downed a Libyan civilian airliner, not to mention all the Arabs that Israel killed around the world, including in 1974 in Norway, a Moroccan waiter who was shot dead near his pregnant wife because he dared to resemble a Palestinian leader that Israel want to kill. That's how skilled Israeli Orientalists are. This is why they kidnapped a farmer in 2006, because his name was Hassan Nasrallah, and they assumed this must be the same Hassan Nasrallah. It took Israeli Orientalists 4 days to decide, oh, this is not the same guy. Anyway. Yeah, please. You, yeah.
Thank you for your talk. However, okay. I want to bring one issue that's very important, and everyone must know that, otherwise you cannot connect the dots. This is a Zionist war. This is the policy of Israel that has been forced upon America. This is not the interest of America at all. But however, through this policy, America was promised an empire, which so far we have really noticed that nothing really works for America and actually helped Israel greatly. And that is the strategy of Israel in 1980s by Oded, I think is Elon, which said Israel, in order to be should be a power of the region, as a empire of the region, as some call it. In order to do that, must destabilize the regional state to create non-Arab state as a puppet. And we know that's why we had invaded Iraq and created the country, partitioned the country and created now a region so-called north of Iraq, Kurdistan. This is their policy. They have the same policy in Iran to create Balochistan, the Kurdistan, this and that. American must know this because Obama was selected, as you said, I think, because of his skin, in order to change the image of the United States around the world. And he was even more, agreeable with the Zionist policy because he was, I think, the first one actually openly calling about undivided Jerusalem as capital of Israel. I mean, who said before? Even Bush did not say that. Okay, so
no, he did, but that's another point.
No, didn't say really
no,
openly. You mean?
Let me say the following. Another president
but
said
my
that.
question is,
right.
Saudi Arabia as
right.
a puppet joined
right.
Israel and United States and do all the best. Why the Arab intellectuals do not expose Saudi Arabia more than really it is? They do
right.
not talk about it because the Mughal media, Al Arabia, no one really talks about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is off the agenda.
Well, let me tell you the following. It's hard to press one's own credentials. I'll get to the last point, which is about Saudi Arabia and why don't Arab intellectuals. I devote so much of my time and energy, especially in Arabic, against Saudi Arabia and its policies in the Middle East region on all counts. I wrote a book in English about Saudi Arabia, and in fact, I don't mind telling the audience that when I went to Qatar for an interview with Al Jazeera, the Emir of Qatar, the ruler, invited me for coffee, even though I don't drink coffee. And he told me that the King of Saudi Arabia always asks him that if he wants to improve relations with Saudi Arabia, that he wants me personally banned from Al Jazeera. So, I have a long record of criticizing Saudi Arabia, and there are others in the Arab world who criticize Saudi Arabia. So, it's not true what you said about Arab intellectuals. I agree with you. A lot of Arab intellectuals have been co-opted by Saudi Arabia and its money. And it is a problem. Let me get to the basic premise of everything you've said. I take strong issue with what you said. It's too conspiratorial for my taste. Don't get me wrong. I am a conspiracy theorist. No, I mean that. I am not one of those who said, I am not a conspiracy theorist, but no. I think there are real conspiracies in the world. When you read the details of Chaim Weizmann's 1920 plan, or that the Pentagon came up with an idea to plant articles in the Arabic press using Arabic names that are paid a few $100s. Or you read about the Pentagon coming up with a policy to use an Iraqi version of American Idol to change the political identity in Iraq. Trust me, you go with conspiracy theories. When you know so many of Arab leaders were on the payroll of Zionism, you have to be a conspiracy theorist. But there are real conspiracies, and we have to find evidence for them, and there are kooky conspiracies that have no basis or evidence whatsoever, like September 11 conspiracy. I don't buy them. Your premise, for me, is too conspiratorial to accept, and it has a tinge of anti-Semitism for me. The notion that Israel, in a conspiratorial way, controls American foreign policy, chooses Obama and puts him in power and so on. This is also why I am a dissenter